Welcome to Fireside-episode, everybody. This is Drift. I'm here with Cook. We got some guests tonight. Lord Pete from MBD is here. He's going to bring us some wisdom on the Valdore, which I'm personally interested in, but I'm so far away from. God. Darius is going to talk to us about away teams. And we got a big topic tonight on game progression. And just a couple of news items, some housekeeping. But we're gonna start here with Lord Pete. How you doing, Lord Pete?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thanks for coming. I know this was so special. Valdore wanted to come up on stage tonight and talk to you too.
And you got a really nice avatar to fit the Valdore.
I pretty much bleed green on this game.
Was Valdore your favorite ship? Or at the moment, at least?
It is not.
Oh, okay.
I have to point out that green, I guess Romulans are green-blooded, but so are Vulcans.
Yes, they're closely related.
I wish they'd have a Vulcan race in this game, because I would totally play it.
It's the whole pointy ear thing.
They should really put new races in this game, because that would really excite me.
The entire community has been clamoring for it forever.
Oh.
But aside from the new races, I'd love for them to add more Klingon and Romulan officers, for God's sakes.
Well, ones that don't run away.
I mean, it was such a cop-out that they added Mirror Universe office, or not even Mirror, just Discovery officers to do a better job than the default Klingon and Romulans.
They just assumed that everybody wanted to see a bunch of Federation stuff, which is so wrong.
I don't think they assumed it. I think a lot of people are clamoring for a lot more Federation officers, but at the same time, you're neglecting 2/3 of the playable races in this game, which is kind of insane. But to the point of adding a new faction, the amount of coding that goes into it is better described by the Big Bang Theory of trying to turn rock paper scissors into rock paper scissors lizard Spock, where you add 2 new races or 1 new race, and then you drastically have to change the mechanics of how all those work, because you got to add like a 4th box or a 5th box, and
they could just emulate one of the other races. You know what I mean? As far as where they stand on the battle triangle and whatnot.
But even so, the triangle then has to become a square.
Not necessarily. They could just make it an independent. No gains, no weaknesses to the other races.
They're just like the augments, except they're big Cardassians.
I mean, it would be a little bit of a lazier way to do it, but it could be done much easier that way. They wouldn't have to rewrite the whole game, right? I'm sorry, we're kind of sidetracking. We're supposed to be talking to Lord Pete.
Let's shut up, guys. The survey ships already live outside the triangle too, so it wouldn't be too big of a stretch to get something else outside the triangle.
Oh, good. Scopely, give us Cardassian survey ships to fight with. Yes.
Well, they already did that with the Eclipse. I mean, they gave us battleships to fight survey ships.
But it's not a race that you know of, right? Outlaws aren't necessarily a race. So give us Cardassian freighters to fight the Valdores with.
Honestly, they could have made their own lives so much easier if they just made the Eclipse the Orion Syndicate.
I hope when they do Deep Space Nine that they just release Cardassians, Dominion. I always do that. Kardashians.
Omnipresent leather-skinned tyrants bent on world domination.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sorry. The Cardassians, omnipresent leather-skinned tyrants bent on world domination.
Same. Close enough.
Sorry, Vidar, go ahead. Keep interrupting you.
We call him Vidar.
Lord Pete. Lord
Did we
Pete.
lose Lord Pete?
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
So going back to the Valdore, that ship kind of sits you in a weird spot. Because as you're progressing through this game, you've got the ISS Jelly. And the ISS Jelly is this super cheap, easy to use grinder that's going to make you run through hostiles in an amazing fashion. And if you get the Valdore, you've got another ship that's competing with resources on that very quick in your game. Because 39 to 42 really isn't that large of a jump for a lot of people to be able to make. And I feel that most people would be better off served to get their jelly up around tier 10 and not focus on getting that Valdore to move past that.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you. But I'll let you finish, and then I'll tell you why.
I think that's the big part of my spiel is the competition for resources.
Well, the jelly resources released in this game are about 3 to 4 times what you see for any other type of ship. Because of the ISS Jellyfish Brawl, and the other event, whatever it's called, I forget. But you end up getting like over the course of 9 months, I didn't spend any of it on my jelly just to see what I could get together, and I ended up saving up 120k of uncommon explorer parts. That's huge compared to what I got. I mean, maybe it was even more than 3 or 4 times what I got for the other ship saved up, but it was quite a big difference. So if you're going to go Romulan, especially if you're not leveling very quickly, I mean, I would argue that the Valdore is definitely more powerful pound for pound than the jelly. Not only that, because it's a faction ship, when you're grinding out rep, you're going to get a lot more rep by using the Valdore than you would using a jelly, because of the research involved. That gives you more rep for using a faction ship. So for those reasons, I think it's important to use it personally, and unless you're doing it really quickly. If you're leveling really quickly and you don't feel like you need the boost in rep when you're grinding, then don't do it. I mean, you're right, because they do compete for resources, but seeing as how you get so many extra resources, I don't know. I mean, I think it's worth getting. I built it to help me with my Romulan rep. What do you think, Lord Pete?
I think that in general, it's a tough competition to have both those ships sitting there asking for the same materials, and kind of like what you're saying, it not being a faction ship, there's also some lack of efficiencies in there too for spending materials on the ship, so it gets a little more expensive.
What do you mean?
Oh, like for the ore. And I believe, isn't there any faction stuff that does any of the trick?
You're talking the research, or what do you mean?
Correct.
I don't remember. All that research has been done for a long time. Does anybody have it available?
Which research was that?
The one I'm talking about. Hang on.
Andy, what research are you trying to get?
I'm looking. I don't remember where it is. I want to say it's combat, but I'm checking.
It's in the combat. If you're unlocking post Ops 39, there are plenty of G4 research for tritanium reduction and component.
that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about rep increases. Maybe it's under Galaxy.
It's under Galaxy, like the Romulan Apprentice.
Yeah, I haven't
So
looked at it
like,
in so long. Devotion, I thought it was. Yeah, here we go. Romulan Devotion. It's a 50% bonus, but it adds up. I mean, when you're killing thousands upon thousands of reds, I mean, that adds up a lot. So if you're using a Valdore, you're going to get that 50% bonus to your rep as you're grinding. I mean, that's a pretty big bump over time. That's a lot of rep you're missing out on if you're using a jelly.
Becomes rep versus titanium costs. Much cheaper to repair the jelly than it is to repair a Valdore.
So you think it's more beneficial to use the jelly? I guess up to a certain level, that would be true, wouldn't it? So
Well, if you have level 48,
so if you
or
can get to
47.
level 46 and you can get the pylum, it's best to just use the jelly until you get the pylum, probably, right? Is that what you guys are saying?
Well, Fluffy is saying that faction credits cost you 180k. That's half a pylon. That's something else.
Yeah.
That's his point.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to bring up is, faction packs are not terribly high on the spend chart, especially for low level spenders. Half a pillum really does make a difference. And the thing I think back to on that is I got the Intrepid. Horrible decision, never do it. Okay, but I went ahead.
Oh, you're talking the 3-star ship, right?
Yeah. The 3-star fed battleship rare. Horrible ship. Never do it. It set me back.
Just real quick before I forget to mention it, the Valdore is not half of a pylum. It's less than that. And it needs 150 blueprints for a Valdore. A pylum needs 350.
I think there's a cost similarity between blueprints. It's roughly half a pillum.
It's less than half. I want to say it's like 35% or something. I think the pylum's blueprints are even more expensive. Let me double check.
Mistaken said in the chat room that the pylum costs 507,500.
So it's 350 blueprints. The Valdore's blueprints are 1320 a piece. And how much are the Valdore?
The Valdore was
pylum?
198,000 that I just paid.
So you're right. It's a little over a third.
Yeah, it's about a third. So I mean, that's something to consider, though. Looking at the correct math and knowing what you need for what. Because if somebody's going to take a year to get from level 42 to level 46, which is reasonable for a lot of people, I mean, that's a whole year. You're stuck using that freaking jelly and not being able to hit nearly as many hostiles as you would with Valdore. The uncommon faction ships are much stronger than a jelly.
Like
a lot stronger.
And also PvP.
Yeah, that's another consideration. And I'm not saying you should use the Valdore in place of the jelly, but I do think in some situations it's beneficial to use. I wouldn't just completely discount it. That's all.
I think if you get to level 46 and you unlock the efficiencies in repair times and repair costs, or at least the costs anyway, then it makes sense to use the Valdore. But depending on your level of spend, it would be more mathematically economical to use the jellyfish. Even though you would have to repair the jellyfish more times and it will take you longer, your costs of repair are going to be a lot less.
That is very true.
Over the course of however long it takes you to get to level 46.
But it will take longer.
Correct. Well, but once you hit level 46 and you're able to do those researches, then it makes no sense to use a jellyfish whatsoever.
I mean, it'll literally, if you take into account travel times, as well as having to repair maybe 2 to 3 times more, I mean, you're talking at least double the time to grind the same amount of rep.
But the jellyfish screams, though, doesn't it? It's a fast ship.
No,
It still takes time.
it's got a fast warp, yeah, but it's got the same impulse speed as an auger. Things like slow as a snail.
I was gonna say, isn't that really slow?
No,
Well,
the Valdore's faster than an auger. Here, let me switch to a Valdore.
No, I said the jelly is the same speed as the auger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the impulse speed.
They both have an impulse of 85.
Yeah, it's not very fast. The jelly sucks. As far
Yeah.
as speed.
Trying to chase down a hostile when you're competing with an enterprise, you're going to lose every time.
I mean, when you're grinding deep space, though, it's not really an issue because it's just not overcrowded yet. I mean, maybe it is in the lower levels. I shouldn't say that. I haven't grinded in the lower levels in a long time. I've been, in 48 and 50 areas for like a year almost. So maybe somebody else can tell me what their experience is while grinding in deep space.
My experience is I keep losing to enterprises grinding in deep space.
Okay.
Unfortunately, no one's going to figure this out unless somebody sits down and does the math at a level 41 or at a level 42 and a level 46.
Well, the other thing you have to think about is a lot of people cut down on their spending once they get to 41, 42. I mean, just look at Strange Kirk. He practically went to free-to-play. Same with Zap. Once they got to 41.
I would say the majority just start spending more, though. I mean, those
There's
couple of people are the
people.
exception to the rule.
No, there's a lot of people that are in my boat because I mean, you get to a certain point where, back in the day, $200, you could practically tier up halfway tier up a ship. You can get a couple components. Now you're talking about $500-$600 to upgrade a single component on a G4 ship, which requires 8 components. So
You're at that weird spot in your progression, though, where you're not able to scrap the ships you really need to scrap to get all those materials.
yeah, but the point
There's
being,
this weird spot between level 41 and like level 44 or 46.
I think
really difficult.
the biggest point, and I kind of came in either as this point was being made, or I might have missed the point that I'm about to make. But the point here is it depends on the person which one you want to get. If it's somebody like you who is willing to spend the kind of money to get the resources that are necessary for repairing a Valdore every time it blows up, then that's obvious. It's going to be far superior. It's going to be far quicker. It's going to hit harder. And it's definitely going to serve you well. But if you're someone,
a nickel on the Valdore.
But if you're someone, yeah. But every time it blows up, how much tritanium would you be spending if you're somebody in a lower level?
I don't know. I've got like 50 billion tri.
Exactly. The people who are not spending as much as you are and the level that you're at do not have those types of resources. I have on average somewhere around 500, 600, 700 million tritanium at any given time, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of things. So,
which is why I was saying you're at that weird spot where you're not getting enough tri. When you put your ops level up a little bit more, you start getting a lot more just by playing the game without spending any money.
But it also depends on your style of play and how much money you spend. That's the thing. It's entirely dependent upon how much you are willing to invest in the game. If you're someone who's reined in the spending, as I have, or someone who's never really spent that much, then absolutely the jellyfish is going to be way more cost effective. It's going to be more cost effective either way, but it's going to be the best bet for you to be able to continue to play on. For longevity, and then be able to have that tritanium to upgrade the components in your base that are costing 250, 300 million tritanium, the components on your ship that are 5, 6, 7, 800 million tritanium and things like that. So really it boils down to how much money do you want to put in there into the game. And if the answer is not a lot, then you're going to want to stick with the jellyfish as long as possible. I would still say, as someone else has said with the Valdore, if you're just someone who wants to grind ships, it's just the way it's set up. The jellyfish has been nerfed, so a lot of things you got to look at. But I really do think it boils down to the individual, how much money you're willing to spend, and as mentioned, like Tech was saying, if you're already a higher level but you want to get the Valdore to grind out for rep or whatever the case may be, then that's a viable option. But if you're someone who's just now getting to the Valdore, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck a lot.
Most people get it and then just don't spend much on it until they get to a higher level where the resources are much more accessible.
Yeah. I think Nash was saying that in when we were talking one time on our show, and he's talking about when he first got the Kelvin, it basically just stayed. It wasn't even in a dock. It just stayed home the entire time because he just couldn't afford to let it keep blowing up until, as you said, you get into the higher levels, 44, 45, 46, whatever it may be, where you're getting all this tritanium every day and things like that, so you can afford it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. My Kelvin sat in the dock for a while.
That's probably what I would do, because I built an Enterprise and I've been sitting on that at tier 4, haven't been using it hardly at all. I'm just waiting for 39 when I can actually afford to start putting resources into it. So that's probably what I would do if I was in that position. And I'm free-ish to play,
With every ship that you get, when you get multiple ships, it's all about picking and choosing which one you want to spend the most time and effort on. Especially, when you get a whole bunch at once. We all had this whole gap between 34, 35 and 39, 40 between getting the epic ships and getting the jellyfish. And it was always a choice of which epic ship do you focus on. What gives you the best grind or helps you get to where you want to get to. I did look at the Valdore as, well, the jelly events give so much rewards, and the Valdore is going to get eventually stronger than the jelly ever can, and can go further than the jelly ever can, and can do that rep grind to help you out with with maxing that rep. Also, I happen to love Romulan ships. I have a few figurines at home, including a Valdore.
Just a few, yeah.
Hey, have any of you guys looked at the mod yet, or the PC version?
I'm actually playing right now.
I'm playing right now on the PC using the new mod, the Ripper.
It's beautiful.
It's so awesome.
Seeing the whole system, I
oh
just
my
love
god,
it.
it's freaking great.
It dropped for the perfect event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, good job to Ripper.
I would just remind anybody that's using it to go drop them a couple bucks, even if it's just literally a couple dollars.
Yeah, he definitely deserves it. If you're not sure about it, I posted in the announcements channel yesterday all the information, including how to send money to him.
Yeah, I turned off those silly victory banners. I've been wanting to turn those off ever since I started the game.
Oh no, that's so nice.
You can disable those by going into the battle mode on mobile.
No, they still pop up.
Yeah,
No,
you still get
they don't.
banners.
They don't pop up for me.
Yeah, they do.
They don't.
Okay.
I love how pompous Handy is sometimes. He's telling me what pops up on my screen.
Go check.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now. I'm grinding right now as we speak, live in color.
And every single ship you hit, it doesn't show you a banner.
Correct. That's correct.
You're getting no banners.
That's correct. When I turn it off, then if I've recently blown something up, then I'll show the banner with the points and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
The battle pass does turn off all that stuff. I mean, the battle view.
I'm still getting victory ones in battle.
Yeah, I still get event progress banners.
But the rest of them are
And
gone.
victory. I get victory and event banners still.
Yeah, especially when there's all those 3 or 4 events going on. It's event. You're enough already.
I actually like
Maybe,
looking at the event banner because it tells me, because that way I can track and see when I'm done with the event.
True.
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
I just don't like it when I go to click something and it's in my way and I end up clicking the banner instead of what I wanted to hit.
that
Yeah.
pisses me off no end. But
If
that's the
you
nice
use
thing about using a mod
the
like
PC
this.
mod, you see like 10 times more. The
I
banners
have
don't even
lost
annoy you
so many
anymore.
PvP fights because I accidentally clicked on a banner instead of targeting somebody's ship.
Oh, I know.
hate
Oh,
that.
exactly. God. Price got the same thing. It's so awesome. But yeah, you can see people coming from a mile away with this mod. I love it.
It's a distinct advantage in a PvP scenario.
So yeah, so Tiger's here. Do you have any questions on the Valdore?
And we lost Tiger.
Yeah. Discord is awesome.
Yay, Discord. Pete, do you have any other suggestions at the beginning stages of 40 for us 40 noobs?
Don't skip any opportunity to use your scrapyard. If you can scrap a ship, because you're going to need those commons and uncommons, especially the commons.
Fuck yeah.
And, yeah, I was just gonna say Kirk has been really struggling with the commons.
I need 66. I think I need 66,000 common crystal for a shipyard. And it's not like G3 mats where you can just dump a bunch of latinum. You just can't afford it. You try to buy that much and it's like 500 and something thousand latinum. It's outrageous.
Oh my god. That makes me sick just thinking about.
I feel like they start giving you little tastes of that in the G3 epics. What they just load up on a bunch of common for one mod. Like just a few thousand, like the stuff you're not usually seeing. Like I've been doing full pulls just to get the common mods because I've been spending all my lat on speed ups. But I can't imagine like what those kind of costs. But I've been hearing about people scrapping, from Handy, scrapping enterprises and stuff.
Anybody get the screenshot that you posted?
What was that?
You got a bad connection there.
They were asking about the screenshots I just posted, showing I'm almost halfway there on my commons, and do I want to spend 240,000 latinum on it?
Probably not.
Yeah, it's 10 latinum per common.
That's outrageous.
Oh,
They need to fix that.
Yes,
That's
that
too
needs to be
much,
cut
man.
from 10.
That is too much.
Ridiculous.
Disgusting. Yeah, I saw you went to 43. Was that because of the auction event?
50% increase in ISO emulsion, plus my Franklin A turn-ins get way better. Only reasons I did it. And 43 to 44, I'm in no hurry at all. That doesn't buy me anything. And then 44 to 45 is pain and suffering. So that's probably going to be delayed for quite some time.
I don't think 44 to 45 was that bad. You sure?
I'm
pretty sure it's 45 to 46 that's the bad one.
Yeah, 45 to 46 is really bad. Personally, 44 to 45 is going to be bad because I've not been keeping some of the buildings up to level that I should have been.
I don't think anybody did. I certainly didn't when I was leveling. I only did stuff I had to.
Mistaken wants us to discuss dilithium.
What about it?
What about it?
ship upgrades and research.
Not, babe.
Do your swarm and turn in dilithium every day.
Yep.
And they're giving it out like candy now in comparison to how it used to be.
Yeah, and keep up on your efficiency researches.
Yes, love that.
I'll say that it goes in stages. I mean, you'll get to a point where you're like, fuck, man. Like when you're going from 39 to 41, 42, you'd be like, shit, I just can't keep enough par steel. And then you get to a point where it's like, now I can't keep enough tritanium. And then you get to the point where you're like, I have no dilithium. So it goes in stages.
Mm-hmm. It ain't one thing, it's
If you
another.
do it right.
You're always going to
If
be
you
out
do
of
it right.
something.
I've been out of dilithium since I think since I started running at 39. I'm 41 now, and my dilithium stash just cries every day. There's no keeping up with it as far as I can say, but I also blitz my researches like crazy. So I have a problem with little green arrows, and I probably do a lot of that to myself. But it's at least enough to keep you rolling. You know, if you stay on top of your Frank A, and like I mentioned, your efficiencies and stuff like that, those are absolutely critical. But you're right. You never seem to have enough of everything at once. You know, there's always something you're low on. You're like, shit, I gotta wait on more titanium, or I gotta wait on more G4 commons, or I gotta wait on more dilithium, or whatever. There's always something.
Why does Tiger sound like a Jason Bourne character?
Because he
That's
is.
cool.
I am actually a Jason Bourne character, very shallowly written and mostly two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a hypnotizing voice. Like he's like when you listen to one of those like those soothing meditation tapes.
That wasn't weird at all, buddy.
The truth of it is 6 years in the army, a lot of scotch and a lot of cigarettes. That's really why I sound like this. I'm actually half the size that my voice would indicate.
Everybody nickname him Tiny. Pete. Yeah, the resources. The one thing that I will tell to anybody who cares, everybody wants to kind of get the research out of the way. Everybody wants to hurry it along. But think about it objectively. What are you hurrying it along for? Is there an event where you'll at least get some sort of return for spending your latinum or a bunch of resources at once? Try to time those things. I'm not saying save everything for auctions, because we all know unless you're willing to spend the money, you're not going to win those auctions. But wait until there's some sort of a leaderboard.
Depends on what bracket you're in.
So let's think about that as you're going through when you're trying to, as you were saying earlier, blitz through all the research and all that stuff. It's okay just to let stuff ride for a little while. I've got 2 things right now that I've been researching for a couple of days, and I'm just waiting for a time when I kind of can get something out of it, whether it be one of the little mini leaderboards in the dailies or something to that nature. I don't really spend any money on this game, and I was still able to, I'm still able to come in 3rd, 4th place on some of these big auctions just because there's no reason for me to rush things at that point. And then I do everything in batches whenever I can, possibly get something out of it.
You're right. I should have qualified that a little better, because that's the same tactic that I take. It's like, if I can have a pile of recruit polls, let's say, but I don't touch them until there's a leaderboard that pops up or something that's going to pay me back, a heroic event or something along those lines. And it's not always in the case of the leaderboards. Like I almost never shoot for number 1 unless I have like, okay, hey, I popped my jelly and there's an officer auction there, and I've been sitting on all these ship parts and all this G4 material I've been getting from Parabellum, for 3-4 months, and okay, I'll throw 4 tiers on my brand new jelly and sneak an officer out of it. But I'm not necessarily looking at those weekly leaderboards or those periodic leaderboards as if I'm going to win them necessarily. But I'm looking at that. Can I hit 3rd? Can I hit 4th? Because then stuff I was going to spend anyways, like Kirk is saying, at least I get some kind of a return. Even if it's just a discount. I hit a ship heroic, which after a point I don't think they're really even worth it. But that's event specific stuff. But in general, always try to make the game pay you back for stuff you're going to have to spend anyways, because that's really how most players are able, especially free-to-play players. That's how you're able to kind of keep your flow going. You keep your mats coming in, you keep your RSS coming in, you're gathering experience and pay attention, because some of those events, they don't really pay you shit, and they're not really worth chasing. Some of the station events specifically, as I've raised up in ops level, half the station events they pay nothing. There's a whole bunch of things there, but none of it is really meaningful when you look at it. So you got to kind of pick your spots and make sure that you're actually getting that return, because otherwise you're just dumping your coffers for nothing. It's for free, which puts you behind the ball and makes you, honestly, at least for me, makes me have that urge to need to spend money. Like, hey, I got to buy a pack because now I'm behind on this, or I want to reach for that. It's better to just make sure that you're getting a return on your investment, because we've put a lot of time into this. Anybody in this room has put a lot of time into it. So get paid, y'all.
Yeah.
Yes, they've been running a lot of those G3 events during the daily events, just giving you officer shards. I think is more worth it than those daily events like you were talking about that hardly pay anything. Because if you waste all of your resources cheering up your ship on one of those little dailies that just pay a few thousand lat that you're probably going to lose, it's better to save it for, like, they were giving away 10 choice shards for spending G3. I'd rather use them for that, because there's been enough of them that it's worth saving up for that.
Well,
I
and
just
if you
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if there's gonna be certain exceptions, especially for people that are working on like your Pike, Moreau, Chen thing. If you got a bunch of officer shards and you're pretty close to tearing one of those officers up or unlocking them, go ahead and go for it, because that's something you're gonna be using every day. You're gonna use your Pike combo every day. Things like that. It's kind of with some common sense, right? But yeah, if you're not really wanting for anything and you can just kind of sit on top of them and just hang on to them until there's one of those, reward events and things like that. So you can reap the most benefits and at least get a little bit of something for the effort. Because Lord knows Scopely's, they're pretty tight-fisted. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Are they?
Yeah, and another thing that'll help you out too is if you keep on tearing up your discovery, there's lots of speed ups to be gained when you turn in your chests for that, whatever that's called, whatever it is in the refinery there, your discovery refinery. There's lots of speed ups to be earned there.
Yeah, and grind Taiga Core. You can get 5 and 12-hour speed ups like candy.
If I grind Taiga Core to the point that I get 50 chests off of the hostiles, I average about 200k, give or take, every run in officer XP. And as you get to higher levels, and I'm sure some of these other guys can attest to this, officer XP sometimes gets kind of hard to come by. Being able to just go out and grind a PvE like that, oh, it's nice. It's very nice. And the same 50 chests, I'll pull probably on average 2 to 3 12-hour, maybe a half a dozen 5-hour, a couple of reload tokens, all kinds of stuff. If you're having trouble getting a cavort, there's your system.
Yeah.
But the drops in that system are phenomenal. They're better than things that I've seen in deep space by far. The other one, since we mentioned Taiga Core, for those of you that are leveling, if you've gotten your faction lock and you're working on those first couple of levels of rep, we've noticed that the 40s in Taiga Core will clear your 42 requirement in the hostile kill dailies for your factions.
It's weird.
I'm dual faction right now, so there's a little bit of weirdness that I've noticed. I'm Federation and Romulan. The 39s in that system will count for both sides of my Romulan daily. So the 41 kills and the 42 kills are cleared by the 39s. My Fed, on the other hand, only the 41 kills are cleared by the 39s. I have to hit the 40s to get my Fed done, but for some reason my Romulan the 39s actually do it. I don't know if that's because I think two factions do it, or if it's a faction difference. But there's a number of things about that system that are weird and very much weird to our benefit. So nobody tell Scopely.
Yeah, I just put the name of the system in the chat room so people know how it's spelled. Thanks for that reminder, though. I've been meaning to do that.
And that gives you the best faction rep anywhere in the game that I can find anywhere.
Yes. I can tell you hitting 43 and 44s off of the hub system in deep space doesn't give me the rep gains that Tiger Core does.
Yeah, I wish they had that system for every race. Unfortunately, it's the only one like it. Wolf isn't. Wolf is a good place when you're doing like faction events for not getting a lot of rep. Like if you're trying to not mess up your Fed rep. So if you're doing an event that requires you to kill Federation hostiles and you're working on your Federation rep and don't want to damage it too much. So it's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum. Go hit explorers in that space.
That's where I go to do my dailies. Because there's usually a lot of 39s and 40s in there.
I do it a little differently to protect my Fed rep. I actually go to like a 34 system or a 36 system, and I'll run two ships. And it's lower points, but I actually end up clearing the event faster because I'm running the two ships. But if I'm hitting like, like 10, 12 points or something like that per kill in Wolf, versus if I step down to, I don't know, Sirius or something like that, a low pop system that the hostiles spawn well and hit it with two ships at, 8 or 9 points apiece. As long as I'm staying smooth in my hostile hits, I can clear it a lot faster. And then the same deal as going to Wolf with a single ship, you have negligible rep loss. So I can go clear a faction hunt very quickly, 15 minutes or whatever for the faction that I'm working on, and get out of there without losing, much rep at all. It's, at those numbers, it's not even noticeable that you lose. And then go to higher level stuff for the rep I care about. And either system works really well. If you've only got one ship to grind PvE, then by all means go to the 39 system that does not have the veterans in it and kill the shit out of them until you're done. But if you've got a couple of ships you can run, you can also consider going after hitting slightly lower level targets than what is optimal from a single ship perspective, and really clamp down on those rep losses and clear the event very quickly.
I used to do that too, except I would run 6 ships at the same time. Fast fingers.
There's 70% to show off you are, so I can't do that yet.
There's actually a 36 level system for every faction that only has 4 spawn points. So with 4 ships, you can do that exact same strategy. And at 36, you're not damaging your rep that badly.
What system is that only has 4 spawn points?
Archer and Fed, right? There's Archer and Fed space. There's shit. I don't know the other two, but I'm pretty certain Archer's the one that, because that's the same one that has like 4 or 5 gas nodes and then has hub spots in it in Fed space there.
I never noticed that there were only 4 spawn points.
Axinar for Fed. The thing with that one, don't kill the I want to call them scouts. The interceptors.
Surveys. No, okay.
Yeah, because the interceptors are not faction based. So if you skip those, they won't respawn. So you can just kill other things and they'll respawn. Alpha Oneus for Romulan, and then I'll have to find the Fed one real quick. Excuse me, Klingon.
And don't skip on an Armada too, because you don't lose faction rep on Armadas.
Yeah, you do.
You do, but it's negligible.
True. It's negligible, but you do lose some. And gain some.
Did they modify that? Because I thought that it didn't show any loss to.
If
The
you click
faction.
on an armada, it shows your rep gains and losses.
I saw the gains. I didn't see the losses. I'll go double check that.
Well, maybe
wasn't-
I could be mistaken. I don't know everything.
I don't think that it was always there. I think that was something that got added a couple of months after Armadas came out. Because I think initially there was no rep gain or rep loss with the Armadas for the first month or two there. But shortly into it, they added it. I think it was in the patch notes at one point early on.
I just see gains
Yeah,
right now. Just
I'm
gains.
looking at an armada right now that just says 7,200 Fed gain, 14.4 thousand Klingon gain. No negative.
It may not. I've never tested it. It may not take away.
Rep loss. There's no rep loss from armadas, guys. Yeah, none.
That's awesome. So only gain.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I just checked as well. There's nothing. There's no negative there. You get the 100% for the cross faction. You get the 50% gain for the secondary faction, and nothing.
There's
nothing
no negative listed.
And remember that 5 of 10 adds to your rep gains too. So if you're using 5 in that armada, you're going to get the bonuses for 5's loot anyway.
Yeah, I don't understand why loot's tied into rep, but it is.
I mean, it's considered a drop, man. I guess it is. All I know is it works.
It must be coded that way. That rep is actually an item, a drop.
I think it is. And that's probably why they treat it the way they treat it.
Which is fine by me.
For real, man.
Anything that helps us is a good thing.
Yeah, you sound really low, Darius. I don't know if your mic level is turned down or.
I can get closer.
The rest of us are just really hot.
I can also use my microphone voice.
So we've been told you have some tips on getting those crits up on away teams.
That's totally not the case. But what I can tell you.
Oh no, Tiger's the one who's talking about the crits.
Yeah,
crits. Tiger.
Well, I had some theories about the crits, but we asked Darius on tonight to see if he could maybe share some of his wisdom with what he's been able to do with away teams and things that he's learned, because that's still kind of a new concept in the game, and we're all still kind of feeling our way through it. So
yeah, I mean, wisdom's a gross word for what I know. My mastery of trivia, but speeding them up does not affect your crit chance. It does not like a percentage of your crit chances reduce. Your failure chance doesn't reduce. There's been pretty exhaustive data gathered by the Ripper crew and the behind the scenes nerds. They work at about the rate they would expect, and it's super frustrating for us to fail at like a 97 or 99%er, especially if it's like 5 days. But it just happens. RNG is RNG, and it's RNG all the way through. So if there's a percent chance for crit, it's going to be that chance. You can't modify it with your officer stats, unfortunately. You can only modify the base loot and the reward from critical loot. You can't modify your crit chance.
And you observed that it is in fact, this is what I've seen personally, is that the crit chance is tied to the rarity of the away team mission and potentially the amount of time that the away team mission takes.
Yes and no. I think it's also Scopely's value on the reward and or its criticality, right? So for instance, the what is it called? A forensic observation or investigation, whatever that one is that gives you the purple tokens, that always has a 30% crit chance. And I think the probes one, I think it's always the same chance. It might be 20 or 25%, because they kind of want you to have them, but then you need the purple tokens, right? But I went 2 weeks without getting a crit on that, and I just got 2 of them today. So and that totals out to, of the 31 of them that I've run, at about a 30% crit chance for me. It's all have pretty small sample sizes, and we all remember failure more than success. So it just we're wired for that, right? Negative reinforcement sticks in our memory a lot, so that we can survive into the next generation.
Yeah.
I can. I'm going to put this out there just so people can hate me. I hit 40-41 and ran my first 3 missions that gave the award of merit or whatever the purple tokens are that's required for that final step and the 40 plus stuff. And I hit 3 in a row on my first 3 tries. I hit the critical and walked right into 40 plus away team mission or away team research with about 500-600 of those tokens in my pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and not touch those for a while because I'm pretty sure my next 10, 12, 15 of them are going to fail. But it was a nice one
So
down
I
there.
want
Curse me a
to
little bit.
about that though. So let's talk about why Scopely values refresh tokens so highly, right? Remember we had that one battle pass where they were like, made of solid platinum or whatever, and they took value out of the battle pass to insert these things. Excuse me. So they're super useful, and not just in Whaletown where the population has speed ups for all their things. If you check your inventory and you've kind of done your battle pass and you've done a few other things throughout the game, you probably have somewhere on the order of 20 or 30 refreshes worth if you haven't been using them, give or take. Everyone's mileage may vary. If you get crap, refresh them. It doesn't hurt you. And if you're not getting the things that you don't like or that you like, refresh it. You don't have to do it 15 times, but throw it down once or twice, maybe an hour before 5 o'clock or whatever time zone it is for you that they reset in. I find refreshing them before another reset makes it feel better if I don't get what I want and I get another refresh for free. But that's just me playing reindeer games with my brain, right? So that refresh lets you get whatever one it is that you want to get, as well as better options for you on some of the smaller ones. Because if you haven't promoted your green officer crews, because I'm waiting for events and I only do them during events or whatever the fuck it is that you do, promote them. They form a mighty middle, and they can, in most cases, take care of those 12-hour greens that you need to get a lot of, because that's the bulk of where you're going to get these isotonic, tronic, chip-o-matic nonsense for the edibles. This is where you can get speed ups. And any one of those that you look, find the ones that matter to you. Maybe you're, trying to stack ship experience for some reason. You can find those and run them with those green officers. Maybe it's an 89% chance. You could probably run 3 or 4 of them and not affect your frontline ships. And on that note, if you're worried about your frontline ships, crew up your ships like you're going to war. Put your whatever you do with your dry docks. If you're one of those, I only have these officers on dry dock 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Or if you're more flexible, whatever it is, crew your ships with the people you want to be crewed with so you could spend a normal day in the game. When you're in the game, now you have whoever's left, right? You look at your carousel of officers, and if you have a bunch of like rank 3, level 15 greens who are max shards, promote those motherfuckers, because they need to be there forming that mighty middle. If you have been avoiding doing an epic, maybe you can wait for an event for one of those, right? Those are meaty, right? Even some of the blues are meaty. But you want to, by the point in the game where you're deciding, do I wait at 34 or do I wait at 39? All those greens should be maxed or near max. They don't have to be max level, mind you. That will help, but you'd have them at rank 5, and you should be, badges are not hard to get anymore. Right? The badge scarcity is, even for free to play, is a lie these days. Everyone has gazillions of those discovery tiny little Doritos that you can use in your faction store based on your rep level. And if you've locked, I think you get all 3 by the time you've locked faction at 10 million. So you can only buy, I think, 1 a day per faction per badge, but that's plenty to promote greens, right? So think through that. Make sure that they form this strong core of your crews, because you need them. They're the ones you're going to send on these away missions. And maybe you put a strong blue in charge, or you're playing with the numbers. And if you get to 100% by throwing a blue that's not in your front line and your 3 warships and your 2 miners or whatever it is you do that. Be willing to take that chance, because you don't have to speed these up. The 12 hour ones have pretty good. So do the 1 days. The big epics and the purple ones that you need to get for like the Borg stuff and for the purple tokens, those are special. That's when you save your speed ups, or even if you don't, that's when you might acknowledge, hey, I'm not going to use Dock 2 today because that's where Kirk is, or whatever it is. So your mileage may vary, but don't be afraid to launch 4 or 5 12-hour missions with a bunch of 80-85% chances with your mostly green crews, even your grays. Some of them have the right stat to fill in the gap because you kind of want to get double the main stat, the key stat like attack, and the other two kind of want to be about half-ish. It's ish. The actual formula is ridiculous, and I don't even want to get into it. But I'll stop the ramble and see if there's questions or comments.
You all
Well, I would-
need to get you a partner that's as passionate about you as Darius is about Cruz.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if anyone ever wants to check and read up on Cruz, go to the crew deck and go to Darius's channel, where he goes on tangents about crewing, and it is the most fascinating information. It will blow your mind.
Please, because I consider myself fairly strong in this game, and one of my strengths is cruise. And since I, a few months ago or whatever it was, started paying attention to Darius' channel and really getting into that, I've learned a lot that I didn't realize, or stuff that I hadn't taken the time to test myself, and or didn't want to take the time to, or whatever. And he has a beautiful way of being able to break that stuff down and give it to you in a way that
Well, it's a lot of words.
apply and improve the game.
If you don't like typing, I can do pictures for you too. Just reach out to me, because I know that some people really prefer, hey, what's the best PvP crew for the Enterprise? And the answer to that question is always, it matters. What's the context? What are you trying to do, right? Who are you fighting? So yeah, and folks that have paid attention to the crewing part of the game know this, and everyone kind of understands it. But this game is a lot more complicated than it should be for a mobile game, and not just because of the back-end math and all that. That I made myself aware of how the math works enough so that I could understand it and then ignore it. Trying to figure out how to predict mitigation versus an armada is a fascinating intellectual exercise, but all you really need to know is just kind of try and beat its best stat with your defense, and you'll be okay. Or throw 5 of 10 on board, maybe with 6, and you're groovy. That's enough detail for most folks, right? So the crew game for me is more of a narrative. Not that I'm cosplaying like Dogs does, but I,
Shots fired.
Hey man, he's a great guy. But I do not have fantasy accountants hounding me for throwing ships against walls. But that's okay. I don't ever get to beat him, so it's cool. But my point there really is that think about it as mission-based crewing, right? What am I trying to do? Whatever that is. I'm just exploring and I want generic stuff. Fine. Kirk, Spock, 5 of 10, go do stuff. And make sure that if it doesn't work, try something different and look at your combat log. It's quite useful, and you don't have to read 1,000 things. There's a few themes that I hit over and over again in any of the various Darius channels for Get Your Ship Together, which would have been the name of my podcast if I was really boring in my life enough to do that. But no defense. I don't.
Shots
I can't.
fired again.
I can't be a face.
Jesus.
I can't be a face, man.
That cannon's got a lot of bullets, doesn't it? Shit.
Goddamn, Darius is in rare
fire.
form.
Did you prep for this?
I prepped for Get Your Ship Together. I'll tell you that much. And then I had a whole thing I was going to do about the cost of Scopely games and its impact on people's lives called Collapsing the Combat Triangle. But conceptually, building those things out is much more interesting to me than actually becoming a YouTube asshole who gets all of the internet in his face. I've done that before. It's exhausting, and I just end up doxing motherfuckers who piss me off, and that's not a great way to live. So I feel like the game is complex, but it doesn't have to be complicated, if that makes sense, to come back around to what my point is here. Like, pay attention to your combat log. If you're step 1 in your damage that something does to you is really low, and your damage after that's really high in step 2 and 3, find a way to push step 1 up. Use more mitigation. If these terms don't make sense, because the way that Rev explains them, and even the way, frankly, that DJs, they're trying to, at a high level, talk about conceptual stuff, but this is not conceptual. It's functional. It's operational. You have to think why does this ship have shield deflection? It doesn't. Why does Swarm have shield deflections? They don't have shields. That's because shield deflection, the stat for mitigation, has nothing to do with your shield health, right? So that's the kind of thing you have to kind of skip over the weird scopely metaphorical names to smell like Star Trek. I mean, they use the same three stats for offense and defense in the Looney Tunes game when they have fights. So, it's the same platform, just different nuance, right? So think about, do I take more damage in an armada than anyone else? Why? I didn't bring 5 of 10. Oh, I can't have Kirk as captain if I'm going to do this. I need to do that instead. And if you have questions, ask people. Most people will answer your questions, and most people will get it right. And if you want pictures, because that's better for you, I have plenty of screenshots that explain this stuff. It's just really, really even more wordy than it would be in the various Darius channels.
Yeah, the
You
shit
have
the
more
shit
than
that
one?
pisses the
Well,
shit that pisses me off about this stuff is that they don't explain everything in the battle logs, and they don't explain everything in their officer abilities. Like they say this officer does this, but they don't explain that it doesn't work in armadas. That only works, against hostiles, or they're getting better with the newer officers.
The new
But a lot of
tooltips are
officers don't
good.
explain that.
The new tooltips are better about non-armada hostiles or all hostiles, including armadas, like or only armadas like Deanna and Riker and the rest. But that the legacy officers that don't work. Actually, it was I think it was Coma that posted in this channel last week. Here's a list of officers that don't work on armadas, which is a really useful list to have. And people on that line, right? Some folks don't understand the difference between a captain maneuver, which doesn't change as an officer advances. It's only modified by synergy, and officer abilities, which advance as you gain rank. I don't call officers don't have tiers; they have ranks. I'm not that passionate about that, but it's kind of an important nuance to keep separate, because ships have tiers. Thinking about a ship tier is different than thinking about an officer tier, right? They use different resources to get there. It's just easier within the metaphor of an officer. Officers are promoted, right? So when you try and you create a little separate mind palace for officers in your head, and think about them this way, like, oh, these are guys being promoted on in their career. Now they're better at this one thing. Oh, and by the way, when they're with their friends, they're all better at this thing they do together with synergy. Go ahead, pretty woman.
Okay, Sherlock, with your mind palace.
I walk asynchronously.
I gotta say that mindfulness technique that Sherlock uses actually works.
Good to
Say
know.
again, Tech?
Never tried it.
What?
Come again, Tech. I think you clipped there. I didn't hear you.
I said that the Sherlock technique of having a mind palace actually works really well for those of you that don't know.
Okay.
You guys have
I'm
no
gonna
idea
back
what
him
I'm
up
talking
on
about.
that.
No.
I'm going to
I know
back
what
that
you're
up
talking
on
about.
that. I
This whole
compartmentalize like
conversation
crazy.
went
I
sideways.
know what you're talking about. You essentially visualize in your head that you have an actual palace with all the rooms, and you literally organize things in your palace. It's a memory exercise to help you remember things.
Correct. It doesn't have to be a palace. It
It's a
could be
visualization.
it could be your room. It could be your car. It could be whatever. But it works.
Oh yeah, I saw that in a TV show.
Correct.
It was
Sherlock Holmes, to be exact.
Actually,
Indeed.
it was Supergirl.
Actually,
that
to
too, sure.
completely derail this conversation even further, you know what we forgot to talk about, Cook, on our podcast was the Temerian chief of security.
That guy was hilarious for like 5 seconds, and then got turned into a puppet.
But I gotta say that Darmok was one of my favorite episodes ever. So that was really fun to have like an individual who speaks that language, but he's like, oh, right, my bad. You guys don't speak like that.
If you notice that one of the first lines he said was a metaphor from The Boys on Amazon.
Yep.
Oh,
It
that's
was like
awesome.
Starlight meeting the Seven when he walked onto the bridge to meet everyone.
I'm lost.
It's a show you wouldn't watch on Amazon about superheroes who are assholes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
and
know
they
what that show is.
they just kill people randomly. It's awesome.
Yeah. So going from
So-
killing
yeah.
people randomly, one of the next things that we need to talk about tonight was progression. You know, we've talked a lot about the 40 plus progression tonight. But there's another progression we need to talk about, which is going from the 20s to the 30s. We're constantly telling people about how much better things are as they go up and how great it is, but we don't want people to actually have to rush to the point that they're hurting their gameplay and skipping levels because they felt that they should, and yet then they can't even complete their dailies. So I wanted to touch on that tonight of how important it is that while we are talking about how great it is at different levels and all the things that are opened up to you, it's yes, go ahead and hurry up to those levels at your own pace though. Make sure you get your efficiency research done. Make sure you get the ships done, and the blueprints that you need for those ships and the research is done to make sure that those ships can do right. Work on your reputation gains and don't try and stretch your resources thin.
There's also certain things you can only get at certain levels or at certain points of progression. And if you skip them and you get to a certain point, you can't go back.
I think our point is always don't camp at these certain
Hold on.
levels.
No, don't cap.
If you
Yeah.
don't mind, let me come at this from a slightly different direction. And I'm just going to share the rules that I kept myself to as I was progressing through the 20s and the early 30s. There were a couple of barometers that I looked at every time. And the very first thing that I looked at is, what is my next stage of dailies if I hit my next ops level? Your dailies, for the most part, in the early stage of the game, they only increase in difficulty on the even numbered ops levels. However, all of the really good research and all of the stuff that opens up for you in that range, if you think of them in like little 2-level chunks, 20 to 21. At 20, your dailies are going to go up. At 21, your researches are going to unlock. You'll get some at 20, but all the really good stuff seems to hit at the odd numbered levels, at least up until like level 35. To my sight, it really holds true up until 39. So when I felt like I was ready to handle whatever my next step up in dailies was, that was when I looked at, can I get to the odd numbered level that still has those dailies? So if I'm going from 30, or I'm sitting at 31, I'm going to go to 32 to 33. I don't want to get to 32 and just hang out and get everything done and then go to 33 because I'm missing out on a lot of stuff that could be reducing my costs or could be increasing my hostile hunting efficiencies or something like that. And this is true in your 20s as well. You hit your markers, you're getting through your dailies easy and early, and it's like, man, this is effortless. It's definitely time to move up. If you talk to the players that are just ahead of you in your alliance, or you reach out to other players that that have been near enough to that level range to have a good memory of it, and they tell you, oh yeah, at 28 my dailies turned into this, and you're sitting there at 26, 27 going, can I do that? Wow, yeah, I could do that easily. That's no problem. And the beauty of this is you can go test it. You can send your ships to those higher level swarm systems. You can go send your ships to those higher level faction spaces. Can you reach the next tier of mining, or how much screen time or how much game time does it take you to clear this amount of mining at this, grade? If you can do the next step viably within the amount of time that you personally spend on the game, go up. If you can't, don't. Plain and simple. That's your most efficient answer. That's your barometer. So is your goal always to try and progress your ops? Yeah, absolutely, because the rewards always get better. The opportunities always get better. Every single thing that you do in the game, from armadas to daily rewards to available ships, it all gets better. So should you do it as fast as you can? Yeah, within your means, like Cook said, but make sure that you're measuring that properly. Make sure that you're actually seeing, yes, I can continue my normal standard of gameplay at the difficulty that I'm comfortable with or the pace that I'm comfortable with. And I can do that at the next ops level, next 2 ops levels up. Yeah, guys, go. If you can't say yes to that question, pull up. You have other things to do. Second barometer is your specialty ships. You get the Franklin, you get the Valdore, you get the Stella. All 3 of these ships are essential to your progression in the game. They're more important than the commons that you get from 20 to 24. They're more important than your 26 faction ships. My personal belief is that you skip all of that stuff. I understand players who want to build one of the commons because that jump from late teens to early 20s is as daunting as it is for some of us at the 39 going to 40 range within its scope. So you get whatever ship that you have to get to be able to clear your dailies easily within your time frame, again, within your play style. And then you make sure that you're grinding those specialty ships. They have the cosmic cleanup event that allows you to collect prints for events that happened before you joined the game or before you were at the ops level you needed to be. Use those events as soon as they show up. Grind the hell out of it if you're free to play. If you're not free to play and you're willing to spend a little bit of money on the game, wait for the events tied to those ships. They will offer you packs that will give you, half a build or something like that. When I was in the early game, my decisions on where to spend my money were things that saved me time. So if I can knock 6 weeks off the wait for my Valdore because all the 39 plus guys are telling me, holy crap, you need that shit maxed as soon as possible, I'm going to cut my 6 weeks because time is the most valuable thing you have. So those are the things that I would recommend focusing on. Can you clear your dailies? How are my specialty ships doing? Get them as far as you can reasonably within your play style. They will get there eventually, and you'll hopefully, if you listen to the people that are around you that are trying to guide you and giving you good advice, you'll get those ships in flow. You'll hit your Valdore max at an appropriate time. You'll hit your Franklin will stay steady, making your dailies easily if you are efficiently progressing it, just clearing what you got to clear every day, and those things will take care of themselves. You can put extra grind time into it to do it faster. That's up to you. Some people will push you to do that. Some people will tell you won't have to. The truth is somewhere in the middle. And at the end of the day, it's really about the amount of time that you spend on the game or that you want to or can spend on the game. That determines when it's time for you to move up or when it's time for you to try and hit other markers. But just make sure that you can maintain your play style. Make sure you can maintain what you're comfortable with and progress at that rate. Pay attention to those dailies. Get those specialty ships done. You're going to be just fine. You can take a 28 ship and write it. A lot of people did that. I didn't. I like the ships. I like to play. I like versatility, so I have more ships than I needed to build, and I slowed myself down because of it. That was a sacrifice I chose to make. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of different paths through this game. There's a lot of different time components to this game, depending on what's important to you and how much you want to put into it. So the right answer is ultimately only yours to figure out. I can tell you how I did it. Cook can tell you how he did it. Handy and Pete and Darius and everybody here, they've all got different ways that they did it. That was unique to their game style, their time, their budget, their whatever. So don't be afraid to listen to multiple people and weigh the advice. But just as long as you're hitting it at a pace that you're having fun with and you're progressing at a rate that you're happy with, really, you're probably doing just fine.
Yeah, and Tiger, if I could add to that for a second, there's no wrong way to play this game. There's no real, especially if you're getting wins. If you have a crew that someone says is suboptimal or criticizes you for, you beat them in a fight, they suck. You won, right? And that could be ship tier. It could be a lot of various factors, but also PVE. If you're still getting your dailies done and you're doing your things, and you don't have some officer that folks say is the officer, I got to get Pike. If you're in your mid-20s, you may not have Pike, and you might not have some other thing they say. So you're using these green officers that folks have basically forgotten about, like to slightly help you in this edge on this ship or that ship. And a lot of like using Javid on your Kumari, right? It's great. He's an excellent battleship captain and a battleship officer. But someone sees you using that on your auger, they might give you shit for it, but they shouldn't, because if you beat them, they still won, right? So it's a question of your way is okay, but always ask questions, because your way can get better. I learn stuff all the time. Pete learns stuff all the time. Everyone learns things from this game. It's a constant process, and they change stuff on us too, which doesn't hurt or help, I guess. So keeping your path in mind and your pace in mind. I was free to play in this game till 35, 36-ish, and I still try and think like a free-to-play player, even though I'm not as free to play as I used to be. Most of my advancement in this game was 2 large sales of Bitcoin that I did to bump me up to the levels I wanted to get to, right? I was able to do that because I'm fortunate and lucky, and my timing worked. If I'd waited 2 weeks, I would have got a third of value, right? So that's luck and timing. And the last thing, my point here is, you don't have to spend a penny in this game to get excellent officers. You don't have to spend a penny on this game to get good at the game.
Yeah, and progression takes months and months and months. Like when people say get there as fast as you can, that doesn't mean that you're going to get there in a couple of weeks. Even if you spend money on this game, like it's months and years.
Essentially,
I've been playing this game for 2 years.
The most important part about this game is staying diligent and doing all of your dailies every day. So you gotta click all those buttons that are available to you. Like make it a habit for yourself. So every day at the same time of day, do the same pattern and click all the same buttons in the same order to make sure you don't miss anything.
But set boundaries.
And that would be.
Go ahead, Handy. Sorry.
What, a couple hours a day?
Well, that would be the best piece of advice I can give to you, is to just do those particular things in a particular order, make it very methodical, and you can spend.
In the easiest way you can.
What's that?
In the easiest way that you can do that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you make it a habit, then you don't miss things. I mean, I think for most people, what slows a lot of them down is they skip stuff because they're like, oh, I don't have the time. Well, I mean, you do have the time if you make it a habit. You do the same thing over and over again. It's repetition. You get better at it. The more repetition you have, you get quicker, faster, better at it. You can just teach yourself good habits in the game. Don't let yourself get distracted with GC and crap like that, and you will progress 10 times faster than some of these other people that are dicking around in GC. It's like, get all your stuff done in an hour and then go dick around if you have extra time.
Yeah,
get all your stuff done first.
Don't get intimidated by Klingon accounting, okay? I know it's intimidating, but don't get intimidated by them.
That's true.
I'm not
pretty
lie.
scary.
GC gets funny.
So just to Henny's point, though, with habits, this game feels overwhelming, especially as you pick up ships that are specialty and have specialty missions. Setting boundaries and being willing to stop when you hit your boundaries is really important to not burning out. I spend an X amount of time doing this shit in the game that I have to do. I don't always do my dailies because I accept that I bought my way past some of those hurdles. But I didn't buy my way past those hurdles because I didn't want to do them. I wanted to just get to a level, have that option. And if you do get overwhelmed by the game, don't feel like you're going to lose out if you take a day off or the rest. I mean, to Handy's point, good habits gets you advanced faster, but managing your boundaries will keep you executing those habits more frequently and not burning out.
That's a great point. And a very good. I mean, I skip things. I mean, I still practice what I preach, but if I don't have time for something, I just skip it because I don't have time and I don't worry about it.
I would say a solid 85% of the time I practice what I preach, which is exactly what you guys just said. Is like, hit your markers, hit your own pace, and don't be afraid to stop when you need to. I mean, that's part that I'm really glad that came up, because I think we should all probably say that a little more often. Because at least
everything in moderation.
Yeah, I get the impression in Dead that there's some people, some really great players, really committed players that are feeling kind of stressed because they're like, man, I want to catch up to these other guys. I want to do these things. And it's really important to understand that it takes time unless you want to bypass it, and it's not worth the stress. I mean, this is a game. It's interesting that something keeps coming up in like every one of our talks lately, but people need to remember, don't stress yourself out. Have fun with it.
And I would also encourage people like, look, I mean, this game's a hobby. And if you have a little extra money, there's nothing wrong with spending a few bucks here and there to play catch up. Just don't go crazy with it if it's not something you can do healthily. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's healthy for you.
Yeah, spending money in this game is there's ways to spend money in this game that are super inefficient and ineffective, like buying ship blueprints and all the rest, officer packs sometimes, although there is a case to be made for those as well. But there's a way based on where you're at in a game, this game especially, to where how you spend. But remember that Scopely is working against you, low key,
Absolutely.
with their voodoo economics, right?
Absolutely.
They're making sure you get 85% of the thing you need with that first thing, but it might cost you 3 more things to get the last 15% or whatever it is. Or here's this Stella upgrade pack that is not quite enough to upgrade a Stella from 1 to 9. So, that stuff like that is not wicked or evil. It's just that Scopely is a business.
Marketing.
Right. They want to. It is also the cycle of mobile gaming brought to us by Beelzebub from Canada that I won't rant enough.
Buy packs for things that you cannot get in the game. Buy packs for things like primes that may take you a couple years to complete if you don't buy the pack. Buy things that you can't get easily. Like, don't buy packs just to save yourself a couple hours of gameplay. That's inefficient and a waste of money.
Yeah, and
learning when to strike is huge, because like the most impactful hack, excuse that pun, that I've ever purchased in this game was in the very first week the territory capture dropped, and I looked around this alliance that I absolutely loved and said, we're not going to be able to be a part of that at first. And they had a pack out there. It was $100, and it had all the special particle types. There was only like 300 of them or something like that. But I grabbed that as like a level 33, threw that all into my ship efficiency, and drastically cut down the costs right out of the gate for every epic that I was about to roll. And having the ability to hit that right at that time was so huge in speeding up my progression in everything else in the game. It was sneaky good. And you've got to watch for those. Those are the best times, aside from like was brought up, some of the primes and stuff. There's some of them that are just like, whoa, man, look at the long view. This keeps paying you. It might be worth getting someday.
Anything having to do with efficiency, like if you're in it for the long haul, do the efficiency stuff, because it is absolutely worth it.
The Stella efficiency was like probably the best pack. I think even better than prime officers. Like, I don't want to say that, but I just am so impressed by it.
It's true.
That's
true.
Perspective based. That depends on where you're at the game. But I mean, if you're 30 plus, I'm on board with that. If for some of the lower level stuff, I think officers might still be the better bet. But officers is so easy to get now, free to play. If you put the time
was
in,
good though.
It is.
I bought that one.
I will admit I snatched it up right away too.
I only bought it because you said to get it, and that rare wall was such a bitch.
Yeah, I did my first 2 Stella like without it, and then when I got it, it was like, oh my! I got like 2 or 3 more. I got almost 1 million particles now. Like after I got that thing, it just was like one Stella after another. Like I couldn't imagine. Oh, that rare wall is horrible.
And it does
if you
help.
don't,
It gives you a lot of options.
If you don't know what's good and what isn't, and what you should be doing as far as buying, like if you're not sure, and like you say, hey, I got $100 in my budget this month, and I want to know what to get, or should I wait? You know what I mean? And just ask the people that know. Ask the people here, that are speaking about all this. Like, because chances are they're going to have some really good advice. So don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I want people to spend money and not feel shame or guilt for having spent money, right? So first thing first, casino rules apply. You never gamble with your milk money or your rent money, right? So you show up, you've got your money, and you do what you're going to do with it, but you want to spend it right? So don't play roulette, if you will. It's the worst odds in the house. So you asking questions, usually one-on-one, talking about money is easier for people, and I respect that. Like when I see people that join Dark spend a lot of money all at once, I hit them up right away, and I'm like, hey man, you don't need to spend money to be a good member of the team here. Here's what you can do. And in some cases, I'll get, yeah, no, I'm good. I just got XYZ, and it's my money and I want it now. That's cool. Other times I'll get, oh God, I felt all this pressure. Like, no, please, no one, even in the top alliances in this game on this server, expects you to spend money. They just expect you to contribute and be a part of the team, show up for others, and to make your incremental progression. You might not be captain PvP with all your things and stuff pew-pewing, but if you're that guy that keeps the alliance in 3rd place or 4th place on Mining Monday, you still have a lot of value. So there's, I mean, it's a shitty event, but you know what I mean. That's I'm not trying to pick on the mining. MCRN's going to always win because that's who they are. It's milk and cookies right now.
Actually,
I'm just really neat.
Last week, I don't know if you remember who won that. Just saying.
I know.
Trek?
No, it was Nona.
Oh.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't my alliance. Get the fuck out of here.
Nice name drop, though. That was very good.
Yeah,
Nona sucks.
I broke down and I bought a Stella pack to upgrade my Stella to tier 9.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, now,
I was like,
is that your first tier 9 Stella?
Yeah, but I'm still short like a few epic, I think like 3,000 epic, whatever uraniums to get to.
Well, if you'd like, I'll swing by sometime and we'll go run a few.
Yeah, I think I have tons of epic directives that I need to use up. I can't one-shot those epics with my enterprise, so probably would.
No.
But remember, epic exchange.
Dude, why don't you just join an alliance?
Epic exchange armadas lose their shields. They don't regenerate after a fight.
Would you just go over to Dead, dude? Come on.
No, I actually like my AC not being cluttered with fucking KJ. Some of those morons.
Well, I will tell you first that one Miss Kaylee Winchester would go out of her mind if you came over here. But our AC is a hell of a lot of fun and is almost never too serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it starts to get serious, we throw some jokes out there.
I don't. I wasn't an AC with Kaylee before, and a lot of other guys. So it's not,
yeah, I mean, come join your wars, brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call it a visit. Just call it a visit.
Yeah, you
can particle visit.
Don't worry about it.
Particle visit.
You can leave whenever you want.
So
really.
Weirdly enough, because I've been soloing like all these armadas, I'm like 4th on the leaderboard for that stupid armada event.
Very nice.
It's just like I was number 1 for a time, and then all of a sudden some players went way overboard. But I was like, oh, since I'm soloing all these armadas, I'm doing all this fucking damage. I'm like, oh, look at all the points rack up.
That's great.
That's
awesome,
true. Yeah, if you're soloing armadas, you'll get more points.
Yeah,
I've gotten to a point where I could solo a 33 rare by myself, like a 33 regular rare. I can also solo a 33 Eclipse rare with the Enterprise. But now that hopefully the Stella's a little up there, I could probably start soloing some of those armadas too.
Well, you need the research tech. Mitigation. If you've gotten there yet in the outlaw tree, choose mitigation first if you're ready to make that choice.
Yeah.
I say 33 and 35 are both really big for Stella jumps. Like 35 is a beautiful place for Stella research. It really takes a big hit there.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, I'm still doing some of that combat research so that I can max those out. I can get some of those like extra crit bonuses on the ships.
Those help. Do you have Sesha?
It all adds up.
Sesha and Avix, man, they're both pretty dope.
Do I have a what?
Sesha and Avix are the crit crew from the Outlaw Yahtzee crew, the Clown Car crew.
Yeah, I think I just unlocked Avix, and I think I upgraded it all the way up to tier 1. But that sounds familiar.
Avix's useful thing is the captain ability, right? So you can get like a 40% crit bonus for 3 rounds, and you get Sesha's bonus damage. You can, I mean, that's where I would get my $1 million numbers, right? Without any other bonuses, right? So, I mean, that can help you. And remember, it's only 3 rounds, right? But if you've got an Enterprise, you know, and you've got Kirk on the side, those first 3 rounds hurt a whole bunch, etc. Right? And it just goes on and on. You can figure out how to find a good mix. Don't discount those guys.
No, that's right. I wasn't thinking about those because it depends. Because sometimes I run 5 Kirk, 5 Kirk Khan. Sometimes I run 5 Kirk 6. But Khan's like tier or level 3, and 6 is only level 1. So there are times where it's just every hit after round 13, if I'm soloing an Armada, is like critical with Khan.
That's good. I mean, and here's one thing that's really important about Stella and Exchange combat in general is once you open up mitigation research and you see that there's a flat numeric value applied to your mitigation stats or to your piercing stats when you get to those, this is where I was able to figure out the advantages of those things in Exchange. By thinking, okay, wait, so if I just add this small amount to all 3 of those stats, these Exchange Armadas all have the same stats that are pretty much flat. So once you can get past those numbers for those stats, you can beat them pretty much every time. And again, remember, Exchange Epics do not regenerate their shields until they're blown up. So if you hit a 33 Epic, you hit it twice. The second time, if you get through its shields, it doesn't have shields, you kill it real easy. Same thing all the way up to the 45. Although don't try that one, it's bullshit.
Of course, the rares, they regen their shields. It sucks.
Rares are more
Rares
scary,
and
man.
uncommons too. Rares are the nastiest ones that are out there.
Yeah, rares have a better firing pattern than epics in Exchange. I don't want to bog this down in firing pattern conversations, but the Exchange epics have basically 1 big shot at the end. It might be 2 shots. The rares get 2 shots at the end, which might be 4 shots. So you kind of have to balance around that when you're soloing. But you know, rares hurt. And I could solo a 35 epic before I could solo a 35 rare.
That was true for me at every step up in Armada targets. I could always, like, as soon as the epics popped up, 33, 35, all the way up, I could do epics much easier than we could do the rares. I mean, if you guys watch in Dead, you know, that's when the higher level Stella players will start getting nervous. We don't worry about the epics nearly as much, you know, but when somebody's like, hey, let's do a 39 rare, like, whoa, sit down.
Right. Yeah, they're serious business.
Yeah, we're starting to hit those 37s pretty good, though. We're starting to knock them out pretty well.
Yeah,
I've lost my fear of 37s. You know, and I think that's true for probably, you know, the top half of the alliance. If they know that like 1 or 2, probably 2 of 4 or 5 players is on, everybody's pretty comfortable with that at this point. My concern is that some of us are going to start getting a little big for our britches, so to speak, and start swinging at some of those 40 things out there.
Hey, good thing that she's repair, man. She's super cheap to repair.
What was that, D?
She is super cheap to repair. Stella's a sturdy girl, so you can throw her right back out there for like 1/80th the cost of throwing an epic ship out there. So Stella's, just gotta remember your shield health, because without shield mitigation, that's why Dr. Crusher is super dope. Because every round you get your shield health back, and that might get you two hits of mitigation, which is always 80-20. So if you can do that with Dr. Bev, shield health matters. Even if you have 1 point of shield health, you get full 80% shield mitigation when it hits you. It's really useful.
Nice.
Dr. Bev in Exchange Space has been a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So I want to close this out for editing purposes, but we keep chatting. Do you want to walk us out, Cook?
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. We got a lot of great stuff covered, especially for progressing from basically 20 all the way up to like 45 to 50. Thank you, Lord Pete, for coming to help us out with the 40 areas. And Tyre, thanks for talking about the 20s areas. Thank you, Darius, for the crew content. I mean, that's always great. And, everyone else, Handy, Tone, Tech, awesome to have you all here. And let's see what next month's arc is going to be. Hopefully we get that Enterprise D.
My money's on no.
Dreaming. Keep dreaming.